You know, I work for a place called Nenkaini, if I pronounce it correctly. And I could pick up patterns of nepotism, money being invested there but not being used. And this is a way, let's say, for colonists to easily be able to blame the ones they're colonizing for their cultures continuously devolving. Because at that place, I could tell you, it might have started with good intentions or hired, the right kind of people, and then it ended up not being that at all. And so there's a few patterns that make me wonder how this developed. But one of them I'm just thinking about now is when, let's say, First Nations children were by a caring and qualified worker taken away from their parents, with them having a chance to, let's say, fix the issues or learn the skill sets like life skills to be able to, keep their kids for the sake of their kid if they put one children first. And a culture, and it's pretty much all cultures of the world are typically like this. And they'll say, it's our kids, we should raise our own kids. But they don't want to learn to be better at it. Even if their kids in front of a counselor would say, yeah, I don't like when you do that. The work won't be done. And in part, it's a lot of work that they'd have to do. And often they'd have to do it alongside people that offer the training that also are kind of needing to improve at it as they're teaching it. But if they're willing to be transparent this way, like I'm really rusty giving life skills lessons, I don't mind saying it. But I know how powerful they are and how useful they are to social creatures. So I'll be super happy to refresh myself as I do that. But yeah, so what I was thinking is I'm listening to this on CBC Radio 1, and it's interviews about doing particular training. Let's say there's violence in families, let's say between a couple, and when there's enough courage to file complaints legally, and then the judge kind of releases the person in the meantime. Well, that escalates things. Now, of course, judges know this. It's not like, what? I never heard of such a thing happening. So, of course, they need to change laws. And in one way to do it is give sensitivity training to judges. And if you think that's not needed all around the world in every type of people primate role or profession, you're wrong. We are so desensitized. So judges are quite happy with, swallowing some of their guilt and just rationalizing not the scenario of that person that they failed and they could have acted differently, but that guilt they feel is part of the job and only they are strong enough to do it. So they're culture breakers and they're insensitive in the way they do it. Now, right now, it's not that I haven't done this before. Right now, I'm collecting more data to prove that the people that ask me to prove my honesty or my worthiness or ethics or morals or principles, not as a talker, but as a doer, which I've been doing for years and years, they're the ones that are dishonest. The people that ask me, the people that run these checks, the people that are head of ministries that run these checks are dishonest and avoid me. Like I said in another vlog, I don't run from the law runs from me. Should they take sensitivity training? Of course, if you're going to be the minister of any department that has anything to do with social creatures, whether, people, primates, or other species, you need to take sensitivity training. The Anthropocene is a systemic issue that we are screwed up in here. We don't have the ability to reference others anymore, much less respect human rights. So let's say there's a flaws in the legal system, and it makes a victim more of a victim. Do you know that victim later, if they have a chance to use such a flaw, they will use it themselves? So of course it accelerates, and then you have what you have. So it is again very shameful that while I want to offer my services for free, that people that wear shirts that say every child matters won't show up for free. They won't learn the skill sets to make it that their kids, if in a counseling session with them, after a few sessions where rapport was created by a counselor such as myself, and where self-disclosure comes out from the child that yes, it hurts me more, or it makes my life harder, or it makes me sad, or it makes me want to run from home when you act in this way, right? And again, it's every culture of the world. Now, when I want to help and I see that this guilt, which is one of the most powerful and useful change engines as emotions to help us, and how I can guide people through it, I know I have experience. I had a lot of guilt when my grandfather died, and I could have become a different person, or I took the course that I took that I'm very proud of, the road less traveled, you know. And I pulled a Peter Parker, let's say, because it was very traumatic for me to lose somebody I cared for that much. And I blamed myself for not having a final visit with him, or not being as nice, let's say, in the last year of his life when I was noticing our conversations weren't as stimulating. So that kind of guilt is I used it. And it's not just to not repeat the same scenario, but I used it to make a shift in my life. But for that, you have to find what you care for. What do you... And for me, it's not a paycheck. I don't get a paycheck. It's definitely not what motivates me to be this person. What motivates me is I care more for your kids than you do. And it's the right thing to do. I've always trained myself. What is the right thing to do? Oh, it's so obvious. Why aren't people doing it? What if I start doing it? Well, no more paychecks. No more families. No more friends. Remember, it's the Anthropocene. You might think there's something wrong with you. Do you believe in the Anthropocene? The Anthropocene means there's something collectively wrong with you up here, and you accelerate and you accelerate. So please care enough about the next generation, and if you want to find a villain to point the finger at, point it at the villain in the mirror and say, why do you not use your love for this child or your culture? Why do you not want to chart a different course of history instead of repeating it at an accelerated rate? Please don't be like this. Please give someone like Martin that shows up in your community a real chance. A real chance, but you got to show up. It's not just giving me a role. It's showing up for the activities I plan and the connections that I'm trying to make with others and among yourselves, in ways that I would hope over time you would not need me for and that you would be able to replicate. Now, I can't do this on a big scale, but my final destiny for the world that I'm trying to give back to as somebody with an ecocentric worldview, which means I love life, which means I'm very ashamed of my own species that acts in anti-life ways, is to film videos where those skill sets are very much well described. And they're not brand new. They're just lost and lost more, or avoided more and more, because it's so easy to point the finger at others. The final thing I want to say about this is guys, it's... You can't change the world, but you can change your outlook, your approach, how you choose your priorities and where you put your attention, your efforts. And when you kind of just want to blame others for not understanding, you're just creating, especially if they're helpers, you're just creating more trauma in them. So it's not just creating trauma in a person that you openly face-to-face violate, but it's to do it behind closed doors. It's not okay. You know what's sad, yet makes me think that religions also accelerate the socio-cybernetics of dying cultures, is that people still want the miracle saviors, the miracle helper. I'm sorry I can't work miracles, but I will do the hard work with you. That's my commitment. I'm still capable of doing that. I'm only 53 years old, pretty decent shape. And I will do this work with you. But the fact that you want to wait for miracles to happen, especially if it's in survival one day at a time, it proves that you need sensitivity training to spend time with your own kids. Because otherwise, how do you explain that there's really work to be done and that you won't show up for the work that needs to be done for your own lives? Stop being your own worst enemies and be your own best friends. I'm here